Welcome to Let's Talk Jets Radio.
What's up, everybody? Tyson Roush, and a man that needs no introduction at this point, my good friend Ryan, Jets Talk 24/7. What's up, my friend?
Hey, what's good, brother? Long time no talk.
I know. Well, first of all, I heard we have a new addition to the Jets world. So
that is true. Baby Shea Lily Delaney came into the world, 6 pounds, 12 ounces on June 17th.
Congratulations, man, to you and your family. Nothing but the best. Seriously, that's so awesome, dude. That's really great.
It's been something special. It was really cool to sit down. I got home from the hospital on Father's Day, and I flipped on Flight 2022 and just sat there with her in a little Jet jersey. I was like, this is everything I've always dreamed of.
No, that's tremendous, man. So again, nothing but the best to you and your family. And before we go into Jets talk, how's your summer going, man? Other than that, which is probably very exciting, but what else have you been doing?
It's been fun. I work at a golf course as my full-time job. So it's been a lot of golf outings, charity outings, things of that nature. And then, just the baby stuff. So learning how to change diapers and learning how to do, the whole clean a baby. I got to cut the cord. I was like, doctors, how do I make it an innie or an outie? And they're like, Ryan, that's not how that works. So I'm like, geez, whatever. So I'm learning a whole bunch of new stuff.
That's excellent, man. And, as we get into July, training camp, the rookies report in a couple of weeks, veterans in 3 weeks. So slowly but surely, the anticipation for training camp's coming out. I think you could sense it. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of excitement. You talked to a lot of fans too, man. A lot of excitement in Jets Nation right now.
Yeah, absolutely. This feels like, really since the draft, I felt like free agency was really nice. I liked what the Jets did in free agency, but going through the first round of the draft, having that second round and just seeing all the key pieces that were added along the way and knowing all the pieces that we're getting back that we never got to see last year, and Vinny Curry and Carl Lawson, Mekhi Becton, LaMarcus Joyner, like all these different guys. There's an excitement amongst fans, and you're starting to see it in some of the other media outlets where you're saying, hey, top 5 teams to watch out for this year. And it's like the Jets are always in there. You see some of these talking heads start to be like, oh, don't sleep on the Jets. But oddly enough, Vegas has us at like 5.5 wins on the season. So I don't know what to make of it.
It seems like a genuine feeling too. Sometimes we manufacture the excitement ourselves because we're fans and we want to, but it's like, they're young, they're exciting. You have like the passionate, fiery coach and all these different things. And it's really cool. Now, the one thing I have is, what do you think is the biggest storyline heading into training camp?
It's hard not to have it be about Zach and his improvement to year 2. But I think if you're looking kind of outside of that realm, you're probably looking at Mekhi Becton and George Fant, who's playing left side, who's playing right side. How's the health of Mekhi Becton? How's the weight of Mekhi Becton? And then, maybe to a lesser extent, maybe what's going on with Denzel Mims. Does he wind up making the team? Does he wind up being a year 3 cut? I would say the left tackle is probably the most pressing for me because of just how important that position is to the success of our offense and the success of Zach Wilson as a player in general. So watching, losing Morgan Moses and having our 2 guys from last year, but just not, we don't have the depth. There's a little bit of a concern, hoping everyone's healthy and everyone plays well.
Yeah, I think the media is going to drive that storyline because Rich Samini is probably chomping at the bit to find out, is Mekhi Becton in shape? Where's he playing? They're going to be all over that. And the second facet to that is George Fant's contract, because he had that little tweet out there being like, must be nice to get a new deal. He obviously has earned a new deal, but now the Jets are in a tough spot because it's like, do you pay him as a left tackle and give him starting left tackle money? Like, there's a lot of moving parts. And I think the media is just going to be, day one of camp are going to be all over that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think the George Fant thing is really odd to me because I see where I think it's going, and I hope it doesn't go that route. I would love to see them go with like a 3-year, maybe it's $15 million a year or something like that, or $13 million a year, whatever you deem, reasonable value on a 3-year contract for a guy that's, 30 years old or so. But you look towards how the Jets might be thinking about it, and financially it makes sense to let's see how it plays out. Let's let these guys have their back against the wall, get the most out of them, and then franchise tag George Fant at the end of the year is probably the way I see it going. I hope it doesn't go that route.
Yeah, that's my biggest fear too, man. Because I have a funny feeling they're going to play hardball with him as well, trying to see what happens with Becton and everything like that. I think if Becton doesn't come in shape or doesn't pan out early on in camp, that may force their hand a little bit. Like, you know what? We need to keep this guy as a left tackle. This, like it's kind of there's a lot of moving parts, but I have the same feeling you have, man. It makes me a little bit uncomfortable. I don't like that kind of situation with this team, especially with a guy that bailed him out last year, has earned it, and played very well. He played well left tackle.
Yeah, he was a top tackle last year. And then you look at how it's a weird dynamic because Joe Douglas kind of, I don't know if I'd say stuck his neck out for George Fant, but he definitely took a lot of lumps when we brought in George Fant for the contract he got initially.
Absolutely.
A lot of fans were like, what is going on? This guy's never played full-time, tackle. I know I was one of them. I definitely was not high on the signing when we first got him. And happily wrong for sure. I'm sure both of us are. And I'd like to see, all the good faith that the Jets have had with their players recently. Like, I know the whole Marcus May thing wasn't great, but with the whole, Dewey that he hid from the team, that kind of got wiped away.
Yeah.
You got some of the malcontents off the team and Jamal Adams and some of those players, but there's a lot of like strong chemistry going on with this team. And to let a guy that bailed you out, like you said, last year at that left tackle position to help your young rookie quarterback, I think would be a disservice to, what they're building right now.
Yeah, I mean, and just to build off that a little bit, you look at his leadership. He's a mentor. Then you have the Becton, you have your Tucker, still young lineman that you're working with, man. That could be a big asset. And also, it's like you brought back Braxton Berrios, so you're bringing back some of your own. And this is the kind of like the play like a Jet guy. You're saying, hardworking, blue collar, all this team first. That was George Fant. Like he is your kind of like that's kind of the epitome of what you're looking for. To play hardball with him and do that, you could alienate some people with that too. So they're walking a fine line right now. So it's gonna be really interesting to see how they handle it. The next thing is like, who do you think has the most pressure on them this training camp to produce? I mean, that's kind of like the either highly touted hasn't produced or a young guy on the rise. But who do you think has got a lot of pressure on him?
There's a lot of guys that come to mind. Like I could probably do a top 5 list.
Okay,
right now.
5.
Carl Lawson. Big time pressure. Like there was so much hype for him last year. How's he going to respond to the Achilles injuries? And I wouldn't even say that like he's towards the top, but like he's going to be someone that a lot of fans have a lot of anticipation on. I think you're going to see a lot about Denzel Mims, a lot about Mekhi Becton. Mims, I think, is one that a lot of fans love the draft pick. And then, what we got out of him year one, it's not what we wanted, but we're like, okay, we see the upside. And then last year they go out and you're thinking, okay, Denzel Mims is going to be their number one. It's like, all right, well, they go out and they get Keelan Cole, they get Corey Davis, they draft Elijah Moore, and they go out and they get Garrett Wilson. So it's like, I don't know if he's got a spot on this team. I want to believe it. The talent's all there. I would say Mims probably more than anything has the most pressure. Maybe, I don't know. Mekhi Becton's pressure to be great and be like above average, star number 1 tackle, I think has the most pressure on him and for the team, where Mims, could get cut. I don't see Becton getting cut at all, but I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Becton. And you see him coming out with the shirt with the all the disses that the media has thrown his way. And I hope he comes out and just starts ragdolling guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the easy answer is Zach Wilson, who's going to have a lot of pressure. But I think the Jets have done a really good job of building around him and taking the pressure off him with all the weapons around him where he can just run his offense. But specifically, the 2 guys I talked about most are Denzel Mims, who I'll be honest, I don't think they have a roster spot for him because he doesn't play special teams, dude. And they still hinted in the press conferences like he still has to learn the route tree. He still has to do this. I'm like, dude, still it's obviously like, to me, it's like they're building up his trade value. That's what kind of when I look at trying to get something for him because he's just not a good fit here. For whatever reason, it's not working. And then Becton's going to be an overlying story too, because if he doesn't come in shape and he's not ready to play, then you have questions because they have no depth at tackle. So there's a lot to me, like there's there's enormous pressure on him. Like I want to see him come in day one, be like in shape, ready to go. I'm ready to win the left tackle spot. I'm ready to start. And it's a no distraction for everybody. But if he's not, the pressure builds, the fans become unruly. The media, we've seen this before, dude. I think there's a lot of pressure on both those players because, just because the fans and media alike had this kind of same like opinions on this.
Yeah, it's almost like the rookies kind of get a bye.
Yeah,
this year, like Sauce, he's going to have a hard time. Like it's tough to play corner at the NFL level, right away. So he's going to struggle a little bit. Garrett Wilson, he may not even be top 3 on the depth chart. It could, you could easily have Corey Davis, Elijah Moore, and Braxton Berrios ahead of him. And then you have Jermaine Johnson. There's going to be a lot of guys on the defensive line rotation. I think most people, if you got 4 or 5 sacks out of, Johnson year one, you're probably feeling pretty decent about yourself. And then Breece Hall, I think he's going to get a ton of touches. I think he probably has the highest likelihood of producing early on. But I think most of that pressure, like we've been saying, is on that 2020 draft class.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other person that's actually a coach, in my opinion, is Ulbrich in the defense. I think that, and it's just, they were so disappointing last year. And now you added a plethora of talent, man. I mean, you upgrade your secondary, you have pass rushers galore, and you really don't have any excuse to not be a top 20 defense. Like, you can't get gouged for 150 yards a game rushing. Like, you can't have those embarrassing performances. And I'm curious, there's a lot of pressure because they got to perform early, because you're playing very physical teams as well. Like, you kind of man up. And I'm curious what your thoughts on that. And if, I think Saleh gave him a pass on a lot of things last year. I'm curious if there is kind of like any kind of melting there that Saleh gets more involved. Like, you know what? I've got to be more hands-on with this defense.
I think he'll get, maybe till the bye week, maybe a little bit before then. If the defense is really struggling hard, then you might see Saleh step in. I mean, I don't think, Ulbrich's in danger of losing his job until the end of the season. Like, if the defense really shits the bed, then I think you'll see a little bit of chatter amongst Jet fans and everything like that. I'm in the camp of, I wanted to give Ulbrich the entirety of this year because of everything that went against him last year. I mean, they traded away Jamal Adams, Leonard Williams, all the draft picks were used on the offensive side of the ball. So they really weren't putting much into that defense until this year. And now you have Whitehead, you have Joyner, you have Sauce, you have Reed, you have Mosley coming back, and you get Lawson and Curry and, Jermaine Johnson. There's a lot of things trending up for this Jets defense. So you want to see at least a top 20 defense. I want to be competitive in games. Now, if the offense stalls out and now the defense is giving up points because they're on the field, I'm probably going to give a little bit more slack to Ulbrich, but it just, I think he is on the hot seat for sure if you had to pick a coach. But I think it'll be a gradual boil.
I agree. It's definitely something that, we'll all have our eye on, especially early on in the season. Like, how are they performing against like a Ravens team that's got to run the football? Can they stop the run, whatever like that? Now, going in the training camp, it's always a fun conversation. It's like, who are the players in line for a breakout year? Like, because now it's like the Jets went from a team that had no talent to now you're collecting an abundance of young talent, but who's poised to really break out and make a name for themselves this year?
So I think a popular choice is probably going to be, Elijah Moore, really getting the lion's share of potential looks his direction. I would argue maybe Braxton Berrios. You saw the chemistry that he and Zach had towards the end of last year, and now, Jamison Crowder's gone. Berrios can be our starting slot. He has that type of versatility. Now, I want to see someone that's like, I don't want to say, not that like Berrios isn't exciting, but I want to see, a high draft pick like an Elijah Moore, or like maybe Sauce has like just some stellar interceptions or something crazy like that. I think for me, maybe the offensive line would be really nice to see. Like, if we know AVT is like the dude and like, you just kind of see how the impact of Tomlinson hopping onto that line turns out. I don't know.
You're not mentioning Zach at all.
Zach is the obvious answer. I hate going to Zach first because it's like
I'm kidding.
It's just too easy. I hope I hope Zach does well, because I think if the offensive line holds and they can run the ball and defense can kind of hold its own, it's all set up for Zach to do well. And if he can show that he's reacting to plays as opposed to thinking about plays as they're happening, I think we're going to see a sizable leap forward from Zach.
So on the other side, you have a lot of guys, breakout players. Who's in a make or break year for the Jets? I think there's a couple guys, and there's some pretty big names, to be honest with you, that are like monumental names that are making big money, I think, that are in a kind of make or break point in their career with the Jets. Who do you think some of those guys are?
So there's a few different ways you can go with this. You could say CJ Mosley to an extent. He's got a big contract. There's a potential of him getting cut at the end of this year unless he wants to renegotiate and kind of stretch that out a little bit longer. I'd love to keep him on the team. I really like CJ. On the offensive side, we've already talked about Denzel Mims. I think you could argue Corey Davis, although I would say because of his like $12 or $13 million cap hit and the way that wide receiver contracts have just exploded over the last year and a half or so, even if he has like a wide receiver 3 type season, I don't think there's any reason to get rid of him because of that contract. Lawson, I don't think so. I mean, you could argue Quinnen, I guess. I mean, if Quinnen really doesn't like show out this year, I saw some article. I don't know if it was Sports Illustrated or ESPN or something along the lines that said he was like the 25th or 29th ranked player in his draft class. And I was like, that's not good for the third overall selection.
Yep.
So I don't know. I guess Quinnen would probably be like the big one that you sort of hope is on the team long term, but are they going to pay him $20 million a year for what he's doing in a very high rotation defensive line? Like his skill set may not be as, I don't want to say as important, but if you're rotating a lot, the contract's probably not worth it.
Yeah, those are all the guys I thought. I think maybe McGovern too, based on how he plays this year, what happens with him. But it's like this is where Joe Douglas and his creative, contract, how we put them together is like, you can get rid of Lawson, you can get rid of Corey Davis. You have these guys where if they don't perform to your standards, you have an out in the third year. So to me, it's like that's a really good spot for them because you're going to get your best. Hopefully, you get your best Corey Davis this year. Carl Lawson's always going to give you his best effort, but McGovern, and I agree about Mosley as well. Obviously, other names too, like Mims. I mean, I don't think he's going to be here, but some of the younger players like an Ashton Davis. I mean, I think at some point you have your first year on the solid, kind of learn everything. Year two, you're not learning anymore. Now you got to really show what you're made of. You're going to be out of here. So some really interesting names there as well. It's Quinnen Williams to me is fascinating, man, because it's like if he wasn't the number 3 pick, we probably like him a lot more. But the comparison's always Aaron Donald. Well, is he this dominant top 3 guy? Is he a $20 million a year player? All this. And it's like, you look at the stats and I'm like, no, he's not $20 million a year player. Will he become that this year? And then he's like, well, now he's going to have John Franklin Myers next to him. You're going to have Carl Lawson on the outside and Jermaine Johnson and everybody else. But it's like, well, what does he have to do to become like a franchise player? Like, what is it, what kind of stats do you need from him this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're hoping close to 10 sacks, but I mean, that's a tall task to ask for a guy that might be playing 40% of the snaps. Like if they're rotating a lot, that's tough. That's really hard. Like you're probably looking at like a pressure stat, maybe it's like the percentage of pressures he gets on a per snap basis. Like that's probably the best way to grade some of these defensive linemen, but it's going to be tough for Quinnen. I don't think it's as much of a sure thing as maybe some people might think.
Yeah. And the other thing too, and this is probably one of the most interesting stories nobody's really talking about at this point, is the physicality of training camp. And last year I went to a series of practices, and I mean, I've been going to practice since the Parcells days. So I know the old school way it used to be, but I know you can't do the same thing in terms of pads and everything else. But it was interesting, dude. It was not by no means physical. It wasn't, they were organized and they got their work in, but I was like, this is just, where's the intensity? Where's all this? And I think Connor Hughes said the same thing. There's been the same kind of rumblings all around. And now this year, you look at the start of the schedule where you're playing very physical football teams. And my concern is if you have this softer camp where you're trying to preserve your players in theory, if you're not coming out full guns blazing, ready to go against teams like this, you're going to get pushed all over the field, dude. And is that a concern for you? And do you think Saleh will maybe change anything? Because you gotta be ready to go, man.
I think that's where you see some of the benefits of having veteran leadership across certain parts of this team. So Corey Davis, a little bit more of a veteran at this point. On the offensive line, you have George Fent, you have Laken Tomlinson, you have Connor McGovern. Like these guys have been around a little bit. The offensive line since, I guess, 2010, 2012, whenever that CBA was where they cut down the two-a-days and the hits in training camp, the offensive line has really been the biggest detriment to that lack of hitting. They're not in shape. And then you're starting to see, a bunch of injuries like the Achilles tears, the ACL tears, things of that nature. So you got to, sort of dance this fine line. 17 games is a long season. Like how much do you want to put on these guys right now? A lot of people are looking at football, and maybe more so running backs than anything else, as almost being on a pitch count, in the MLB. Like a pitcher only has so many good throws. A running back only has so many good car crashes he can get into, throughout his career. So if you can extend that over the life of a career, I mean, it wouldn't be a bad thing to try and have some type of, I don't know if it's like it's almost like when they brought in the Yankees coach to teach Mark Sanchez how to slide, right?
Girardi.
Like, yeah. When I was working at the ski resort around the corner from here, I had people renting skis and snowboards and like, hey, is it hard to like snowboard? I was like, the best thing you can do is learn how to fall. So if you learn how to absorb some of these hits, or maybe shield your body, like rotate your body away from the hit, or run out of bounds, like there's no reason to get that extra yard when you've already gotten the first down. Like just take the step out of bounds, live to fight another day. So I think there's probably some smarter ways to play the game that maybe some of these younger guys aren't used to, because they're just used to throwing their body around to get to that NFL level. And preserving your career, stretching it out, and getting the most money out of your body is really the end game for a lot of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, because you're playing teams like the Ravens, the Steelers, the Browns. I mean, that's just man up football, man. You got it's just, I'm curious to see how Saleh handles that, because in the past the Jets have notoriously been soft teams. When they played a very physical team, they got their asses beat. That's just the way they've always been, because we never were that kind of tough. I like that you have the DJ Reed, the Jordan Whitehead, because Jordan Whitehead's a thumper. You have those guys that are willing to do it. Maybe with the addition of like the improved defensive line, they'll be stout against the run, which is really important. But I think early on in the season that you're going to see like what kind of shape you're in, what kind of condition you're in, and what your mindset is. Like, you could talk about all gas, no break, all you want, dude. That's great for a t-shirt. But come week one, you've got to do it. You've got to show it to everybody, because you're going to be in front of a sold out stadium with a team that's going to be, amongst the best in the AFC. They're going to be a very good team this year. So I'm just fascinated to see how Saleh handles that in terms of just his training camp, if he modifies anything.
Yeah, this defensive line, like you mentioned, if we can get after the quarterback and stop the run and force teams to throw on us, like if Zach and the offense can score some points, that's going to help your defense immensely. And, having that energy to go out and sack a quarterback, like that energizes a crowd. It energizes your offense. It energizes the rest of your defense. Like that is a big impact play. Getting a turnover, forcing more opportunities for the defense to create turnovers to give opportunities to your offense. That's really the name of the game. That's what they went after. They, Carl Lawson, Vinny Curry, losing my train of thought, JJ, Clemens, all those guys. And then they add Sauce and Whitehead and Reed. Like that's what they're going for. They're going for the pressure to get the fumbles. They're going after the pressure to get the interceptions.
Ball hawks.
Try to get exactly. So if you can have that type of impact, then I think it'll, if you're playing competitive football and you're winning some games, I don't think you're going to see as many lingering injuries as we have in the past. I do think football sort of lends itself to a self-preservation mode. Like when the Jets are really bad, they're 3-13, 3-14. Guys are going to protect their bodies. There's no reason to risk injury at the expense of a 3-13 team. It's not like you're a rookie trying to fight your way onto a team. Like there's a benefit to having a young team be bad, because they're still going to play hard, but a veteran or someone that's expected to play at a high level,
decision.
Business decision. Yep,
that's right.
Exactly.
So now, if you look at this roster now, what would you consider the strength of the team?
Strength of the team, it feels like the offense for sure, which is weird to say because there's a lot of unproven commodities on it. Like, is Corey Davis going to get over his drops? How is Garrett Wilson going to play as a rookie? Does Zach Wilson take that next step? Can Michael Carter stay healthy? Does this offensive line gel together? Because if George Fant is now the left tackle, does Becton play well on the right side? AVT got kicked over to right guard from left guard. So like, how does that impact things? So there's a lot of like what ifs, but to me, based on the draft picks and the free agent dollars that have been spent on the offensive side of the ball, you would hope to see I would say a top 15 unit is what I'm hoping for, especially, with the addition of Breece Hall and having Michael Carter, that two-headed beast back there. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And if they can play ball control offense, they're going to have a lot of opportunities in games this year.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And they completely upgrade the tight end position too, which is going to be monumental for Zach Wilson and his offense. That changes the game for everybody, man. Now, if you had to pinpoint one weakness on a team that kind of scares you, makes you nervous, what would you consider that?
For me, it's probably the linebacking core. And outside of CJ Mosley, it gets thin real quick. And I like Quincy Williams a lot. That was kind of the direction I was hoping they'd wind up going later in the draft. But if there was one area of concern, it's probably that spot. Yeah. And then, I mean, honestly, the next spot would probably be left and right tackle, because we're not deep there. If one guy goes down or Becton misses a little bit of time, I'm not super confident in McDermott or Edoga or the kid we drafted in the
Mitchell.
Fifth round. Yeah, I don't know what to make of it. I would say linebacker first. I would have gone safety, but I like Joyner and I like Whitehead a lot.
That's what I was going to ask you about, because to me, it's like I like Whitehead a lot. Joyner, to me, it's like he's been injured. You don't really know what he is in this
Yeah.
defense. Then other than that, you have a lot of young guys. Man, you have Pinnock and all Riley. Just a bunch of guys, to be honest. But it's like, do you see Joe Douglas making moves and being proactive? I know he talked to Riley Reef in terms of tackle. The Quan Alexander has been a rumor for now. I think most of these players are probably saying, you know what, why sign now? Wait till training camp, see somebody gets hurt. I'll make more money. Like, you know what I mean? Like, wait till a team is really desperate to sign me, then I'll get that money that I really want instead of signing in, early July. Do you see Joe Douglas being active?
Yeah, I think so. I think they'll get a feel how the training camp's going, how the 3 preseason games have gone. And I think teams are at like 95 players, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks into August. And then they go down to like 60 men or whatever it is.
Yeah.
With practice squad and whatnot. And I think you'll see a big influx of talent get released into the free agent pool. And I think that's where we'll start to pick up some guys. The Jets are going to be one of those teams that lets go maybe a good defensive lineman or two.
Yeah.
So there's going to be teams that do drop a linebacker or something along those lines, or a safety that could impact the Jets, maybe in a depth role. But I do think Joe Douglas is not done adding pieces.
So in a way too early prediction, do you have any surprise cuts that could possibly happen?
I don't know if they're surprised. I would say the easiest surprise one for me would be Mims, I guess, because I don't want to see it happen, but I could see it definitely happening. I think P. Ryan is good as gone.
Yeah, me too.
Edoga is the only reason I could see him maybe staying is because he plays the tackle position. Outside of that, I don't really think so. I think Mims is probably the biggest guy that I could see getting cut. That would be more of a surprise.
Do you see any of the young corners getting cut? Because the Jets all of a sudden have a lot of depth there, or traded. I don't like. To me, like, we get asked that question all the time. I'm like, dude, we finally have depth. I keep it. Like, I want them all here. Like, I don't see a reason to trade Bryce Hall or anybody like that. Like, we finally have, like, if one guy goes down, the next man up is actually a good player, which is a good situation to have. But can you see one of the corners either being cut or traded?
I would be disappointed if that happened, or at least with the top 5 guys. Like, obviously Sauce and Reed aren't going anywhere.
Right.
Eccles and Hall, I would like to keep them as backup or rotational guys. Right. Michael Carter played phenomenal last year, but then you start getting into guys, maybe a little bit further down the depth chart. Dunn, I guess, is one that we were high on through training camp last year.
Yeah.
I think he's still on the team. I honestly, outside of our top 5, I don't know who else is.
We get asked a lot about Hall, like trading Hall, or they're going to move Hall to safety, and like he's the kind of guy everybody's trying to move around. And I don't think they get rid of him. I think they keep him. Like, he's got too much talent to get rid of.
Yeah, I would hold on to him. I would be disappointed if we wound up trading him. I think he probably provides maybe the best trade value of some of the guys right there, but it's not enough for me to want to give up that depth, or even experimenting him at safety. I'm all right with that. I don't want to move on from him just because we have depth now. We saw how quickly that evaporated last year. I mean, our wide receiver core was probably the deepest wide receiver core we've had in a long time. And then we lose Elijah Moore, Corey Davis,
They're jumping like flies.
Everyone gets, knocked out of the game. So, like, why risk that depth that you've been working so hard for so long to build up?
Yeah, no doubt. So one of the fun questions is, like, going into camp, who is the face of the Jets franchise?
Ooh, that's a fun one. I feel like it's got to be Zach. I don't know if he's really, like, earned that yet, but I think because he was the number 2 overall pick, the quarterback, I think it's hard not to pick him.
It's almost Salah, I think.
It is
I mean, him, right?
Honestly, that's probably a good answer to that. I would say, probably Salah and Zach would be like the 2 guys. Like, even on the defensive side, I don't know. I don't think I'd put CJ Mosley there really.
And they have some personalities. I mean, I think, like, once the season starts playing out, like Sauce Gardner, if he starts playing well, he has that personality. I mean, Uzuma has that, that great smile, all these different things. But I'm like, if you had a market the New York Jets right now to say, hey, you know what, go to MetLife Stadium and watch New York Jets and see this guy play. It's like, well, it's
probably Zach, Michael Carter, and Elijah Moore. Those would probably be the 3. Like, if you were like, hey, these are the guys that are going to be on the front of the program. Like, I think those would be the 3 because they're fun. They're like, it seems like they're palling around a lot. Like, I like that dynamic.
Yeah, and I guess the last two questions I have for you is, the big story obviously is Zach Wilson, and what's realistic to expect in training camp. And obviously when training camp starts, everybody's gonna be counting, completions and interceptions and
Mhm.
all this shit. He went 10 for 20 in practice. He's terrible. But what's a realistic expectation, coming into training camp? Like, listen, he's got to be able to run the offense. But to me, I think the biggest story is I want to see him emerge as a leader. Like, I want to
Mhm.
see him grab this offense and make it his and have, direct this team to have them follow him. Like, the one thing about Josh Allen is you saw him grow the most was
Mhm.
he emerged as a prominent leader, man. They gravitate him. They want to play for him. It's his team. I'm hoping to see Zach start to do that along with playing well, but just kind of become himself a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something I want to see happen. I want Zach to kind of take those reins and be the guy that people
Yeah.
look to in the room. Like that's the alpha dog mentality. And I don't know if he's there yet. I think he'll have to do like with Josh Allen, you got to see a guy that's absolutely enormous run through dudes. Like there is
Yeah.
a passion and almost like a Steve Young-esque
Yep.
response to running as a quarterback because you're just you're vulnerable. You're not really
Yeah.
supposed to be doing that as a quarterback. Um, so Zach's one that I would like to see that kind of growth in. And I think if he comes in and he's able to hit those, the short routes, he's able to play from within the pocket. And then when the play breaks down, now you start seeing that, God-given athletic ability of him
Yeah.
escaping the pocket and whipping it sidearm down the field. I don't want to see that type of play every single play. I want to see some boring offense that's
Yeah.
like
Of course.
excitingly getting first downs.
Yeah, I definitely want to see him emerge though. Start to become more of a prominent figure on the offense. Just be the spokesperson, be the leader. And I think he's in a good spot for now because he's have a good line in front of him, a lot of weapons. And I think a guy like Ozuma is gonna be huge for him, dude. That's just it's all good things. But then it's like, okay, what's realistic expectations? He's got to play well because he's got pressure on him, man. And like you can't come out, the first quarter of the season and be sluggish and looking off and looking dazed and confused
Mhm.
because then this market will go completely, batshit crazy about it.
Mhm.
He's got some.
It's true. I mean, it's definitely true. When you look at how they wanted to operate this offense last year was running the ball and utilizing the tight end, and we didn't do that because our offensive line hadn't gelled together and we had no tight ends.
Yeah.
So this year, having
Tyler
Uzoma
Croft.
and Conklin and Rucker, like this is the deepest tight end room that I can really ever remember being a Jets fan. So it's exciting to see this because this offense is so predicated on that
Yeah.
position. And then you have Michael Carter, Tevin Coleman, Brees Hall, like that stable of backs. Those guys are going to stay fresh long into games
Yeah.
and deep into the season. If they can stay healthy, this is going to be a really exciting offense that doesn't necessarily have to rely on like deep plays from like the wide receivers and things like that. Like you can eat up a lot of clock with the running game and the tight ends.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And it's just like we talked about this earlier, like during the draft and stuff. Like this is a well-rounded team now, man. It's like they
Mhm.
have talent on both sides of the ball. Everybody's talking about it. We talked about, the over-under is like 5.5 wins. And it's like the realistic expectation going into training camp now, which is 3 weeks away, assuming everybody stays healthy and out of trouble, is this team should win 7 games. That's kind of where I'm at. And anything less than that is gonna be disappointing. And I simply say, well, if they win 5 games if Zach is playing great, maybe I'll give you that. But dude, to me, it's just like if you evaluate everything we've talked about, it's like
Mhm.
obviously there's some adjusting with the offensive line, getting guys acclimated. But dude, this isn't like at least a 7-win team. Like they should be competitive week in and week out with this much talent.
Yeah, I want to see in the hunt at the end of the season when you get into that late November. I just want to see the icon, the little jet icon at the bottom that says like, "Hey, if
Give me
the
hope.
moon rises twice in one day, and you
Right.
find a bunch of heads up pennies, the Jets might get into the playoffs." Like that. That's
Yeah.
all I want to see. Just competitive,
Yep.
competent football late in the games. I don't want to be like the end of September being like, "Oh, mock draft season's up again." Like
Yeah.
I'm so sick of that. I want a healthy roster. I want to see progress. I don't need playoffs, but like you said, 7 wins I think is the important milestone for the Jets this year.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I guess the last one I have for you is in terms of just training camp battles. I think obviously the biggest one is going to be Fant and Becton. But are there really that many starting spots open on the Jets right now? Like I was trying to think about it. You look at Brees
Mhm.
Hall and Michael Carter. I think are going to be
Mhm.
that's right. That
Yeah,
they could
1A,
probably
1B, it's
yeah. I mean the wide receiver spot. I think as of now you probably figure it's going to be maybe there could be some battles there. But I
mhm.
mean, how many really legitimate roster starting spots are open on the team?
Yeah, that's a tough one to kind of say because the offensive line seems set. I mean,
Yeah.
aside from like which side the tackles are playing on, the wide receiver core, you got to think that the top 4 guys are, Corey Davis, Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson, Braxton Berrios, and then,
Yep.
it starts to kind of,
Yeah.
user's choice after that. So you're not really getting a starting position there.
Tight end, they probably switch back and switch back. Conklin and Zuma are fine.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you say the defensive line and how the rotation maybe goes. I don't know if that's so much like the starting spot, but I mean, Vinny Curry's one I like a lot, but it wouldn't shock me if maybe he wound up getting cut towards the end of the year just because of the depth we have.
Yep.
Yeah,
Maybe,
I don't know.
Maybe safety.
That was the only spot I was gonna say. Maybe that's a conversation, unless you want to talk maybe the tight ends, like if you Zoma and Conklin are like, oh, who's 1A, who's 1B, but it's tough. Safety's probably the best answer for that.
Because you think the Jets have come a long way. Usually every year we have like 5 position battles we got to watch, and this and that. You look about it, it's like you pretty much know who's playing where, and you're comfortable with it, right? Like you look, you know what? I like this guy. Like that's not bad. That's not bad. It's like it's a refreshing feeling, and it's like all right, just now you go into training camp. It's about maximizing all the talent, being very efficient, getting everybody there healthy, and going after it. And I think they should be okay. And it's a lot of it's on Saleh, man, because he's got a lot of young players with a lot of personalities. And they're all hungry, which they're all motivated now. But it's like he's got to also adjust. If you're not starting, how do you handle that? Like if Garrett Wilson isn't getting 7 catches a game, or maybe Michael Carter's getting too many carries. Like Saleh's got some work to do to make sure he's massaging all the egos and personalities too.
Yeah, it's almost like the biggest maybe not the biggest what if, but like Saleh's development as a coach and how he handles the personalities, like you said, and the playing time, and when they start losing. How do they respond? Last year they fought through everything, but that message starts to get stale if you've added all the talent and things still aren't going your way.
The finger pointing starts, especially with the young guys. I'm excited, man. Like I'm really looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to training camp. There's some questions, but I think it's just there's a lot of young enthusiasm. There's a lot of just passion, and I think the one thing you take away from Flight 22 is they have a lot of pride. Like it seems like they're restoring the pride in the locker room. They're like, listen, we're tired of losing. We're tired of getting pushed around, and that's a really good thing too. That's how you change your culture. But now it's about putting it all on the field,
Yeah, that's something you definitely got from the Flight 22 series. It was, you see these guys have the passion and have the, like, I came from a winning culture. I want to continue that here. Like, I don't know the losing ways of old. I'm coming here now to do what I want to do. Sauce Gardner's the same way. Like all these young rookies that came in the last 2 years, they had success at their college programs. They don't want to lose. They're not part of, Jet history. They want to make, a Jet future here.
Yeah, no doubt. So I guess the last question I have for you is, how are your beer pong skills, man? Because the rumor has it I may be seeing you week 1.
Oh yeah, there's a strong rumor that I'll be seeing you week 1. I definitely am looking forward to it. My beer pong skills are all right. I haven't played too much recently, but not too bad. Little fadeaway.
Yeah, I'll be practicing starting probably August. I'll get my own little training camp, get ready for you. See,
right?
So for all these things. Now, are you going to go to any away games this year?
I haven't really planned on it yet. The one that like is intriguing to me is definitely the Lambeau Field one, because it's probably the last time we're going to get an opportunity to see Aaron Rodgers at Lambeau. Like that's appealing. After that, like who knows what their next quarterback is going to wind up being, or I don't know. It's tough. I've been to one away game. I went to a Jets Dolphins game in Miami. Great time, a lot of fun, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to make the trek. What about you? Where are you going?
I'm like you, man. Like I've been to Lambeau once, but it's such a good time. It's such a really good football environment that I really enjoyed it. But the airfare right now is just ridiculous, which is one thing. But then it's like I wanted to go to Seattle, but it's on New Year's. I'm like, that's definitely not going to happen.
Yeah.
And then maybe like Minnesota, just kind of like I like seeing new stadiums, man. That Minnesota stadium looks beautiful. Then it's like, when you get to the week of the game, like a game like Pittsburgh, like, you know what, maybe we can do this one. Maybe we'll go to Cleveland. Like you start thinking about it, but I try to do at least one every year. And then Miami, if it's like a win and in situation, then you got to go to that one. It's like a Jet home game.
I've got a bunch of family in Florida too. So that was a fun one that I did a few years back. It was like, okay, I'll see my family in like Fort Lauderdale, drive up to Miami. Like, this will be perfect. And that would be one that I think I'd consider going to, especially like, rub it in some Dolphins fans' faces.
Yeah, of course. Get some sun at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Brian, first of all, thank you very much. I know it's just early July, and I know it's like Jets talk isn't really prominent in anybody's head, but I wanted to get your thoughts on training camp because before you know it's going to be here, and I know you're going to be busy as hell. So people that don't know you, which is impossible at this point, how can everybody find you?
Jets Talk 24/7 on YouTube, on Facebook as well, and Instagram and all that good stuff. So if you want to watch some Jet content, I've got some stuff coming out.
Well, thank you again, man. Definitely hope we can do this again during training camp. We'll discuss all the latest rumors and stuff. And then week 1, it's on, man. Then that's our friendship ends and the beer pong war begins.
Hell yeah, brother. Thank you so much for having me on. I can't wait for week 1.
I'll talk to you later, man. Thanks a lot.